Greetings. I am alive. Barely. Doing this stream today is a gamble. I don't know exactly how long my brain is gonna hold up. It's doing kind of some crazy, weird, squirrely things right now. And my voice, it'll be a competition to see which gives out first, my brain or my voice. But I could not leave you guys hanging for another day, and I couldn't. I'm feeling well enough that I couldn't justify just not doing one. So I'm here. I appreciate you guys showing up and tolerating the absence for the last couple of days. But now that you're here, please do me a favor, hit the like button, hit retweet on the tweet if you're watching on Twitter. You can follow me over there at RealKingPilled. I got a lot of video content for you guys today to hopefully kind of ease the burden on my voice. I've got the cough drop in. I got another handful of them over here. Got some nice hot coffee, and I'm gonna soldier through. I'm sacrificing myself for the sake of you guys. You see what you put me through? Look how great of a person I am. Last night I woke up. I was kind of sleeping all day, and so the smoking, apparently, like, my sinuses have been untouched completely, which is like the great thing I could say about all this. Like, everything else was maxed out to the worst, but my sinuses have been clear the whole time. Like, almost the first time ever in when I've gotten really sick like this, that my sinuses have stayed basically untouched. I've been able to breathe through my nose just fine, and so that's been something I'm very, very grateful for. I don't know if that's the cigarettes or what, but I've never had the all body intense aches like this before. I couldn't move. I was laying down. I was laying in bed, and I couldn't stop moving. Rather, I just couldn't sleep because I just had to keep moving my body because it just hurt. It just hurt just existing. Apparently, it's cytokines. That's what I did. I had a lot of time to just sit there and kind of search for stuff to distract me. So apparently, it's cytokines that make your legs hurt. But I got my sleep schedule all wonky. So I woke up at like midnight last night and had been sleeping most of the day and was starting to feel a little bit better. I had a big sweat break. That's probably a fever breaking or something like that. It was kind of gross being in my bed. And I'm just like, I'm going to try to sleep more because I'm like, I need to get a lot of rest because I need to make sure I've got a full day tomorrow. I got to get a bunch of stuff done. So I lay there in bed for like 3 hours probably, just laying there, just thinking, trying not to play on my phone. I'm like, okay, just leave the phone across the room. Just lay here. Nope, just no sleep at all. So I don't know. It was like 2 or something in the morning, 2 or 3 in the morning. I finally just got up and grabbed the dog and just went for a walk. And it was really nice, except it was cold and the dog started shivering too much, so I had to take him back home. But I ended up being awake until like 8 a.m. I was like, well, this isn't working well. This is just setting me up to want to sleep all afternoon. But I did get a few hours of sleep and then woke up and kind of got caught up on some things. So I was able to keep track of this continuing resolution bill that has been the major story for the last several days. I've had notifications on for Elon's tweets and Vivek's tweets and Thomas Massey's tweets and then Eric Doherty's tweets because he stays pretty tuned into everything that's happening. And so I've been able to keep track of what's happening. And it's been very, very, very fascinating to watch. I've got a whole bunch of stuff on that here. So let's get into let's do our slop stuff here real quick, and then we'll get into all of that. This first one here is a submission for the Wife Jack segment. The Wife Jack provides us memes. This she said this one actually got her in the feels a little bit. The way this little boy reacts to discovering that the Grunch is in his house. Now I'm obligated, so you guys know, because my son is probably listening to this. It is the Grunch. Wink, wink. You guys understand. In this house, we refer to the Grunch. So this little lad prepares to fight Dad, who's dressed up as the Grunch.
Dad! It's got the shop. Get out of me right now! What is it? Get out! Get out! Get out! Thomas! It's a little present. doing? Oh, dude.
Man, this little dude's ready to go. I might be scared, but I won't run. I missed that the first time through, and I heard it. And my wife was like, "Did you hear what he said?" And she was like, she like side-eyed our son, and she was like, "I don't know if someone else around here would stand up for his mommy," and I think he totally would. That's exactly how my son would react, except probably a little more violently. What an absolute wonderful little lad. So that has been your Wife Jack segment of the day. Thank you to Mrs. Kingpilled. Here's a little nostalgia for you guys. I got a couple of these. I've got two and a half, 3 nostalgia bits for you.
One fine day with a whoop and a purr, a baby was born and it caused a little stir. No blue-buzzard, no three-eyed frog, just a feline canine little cat dog. Cat dog, cat dog. Alone in the world was a little cat dog. Out on the road or back in town, all kind of creatures moving cat dog down. Gotta rise above it, gotta try to get along. Gotta walk together, gotta sing this song. Cat dog, cat dog. Alone in the world is a little cat dog. Cat dog, cat dog. Alone in the world is a little cat dog.
All right, so I can see for at least some of you in the chat, that got you exactly the same way it got me. There is an age cutoff for that one. Yes, CatDog. I watched very few of these shows growing up. It was just not like, I was a very, very conservative Christian family. I watched VeggieTales. You know, I was aware of all of them, but I wasn't completely sheltered away from them, but we just didn't have them in the house. So it was only if I went over to a friend's house and later on we had cable very briefly. And so then I got a bunch of Nickelodeon content because of that. Then my parents were kind of relaxing a little bit. But okay. You guys aren't allowed. You guys aren't allowed to make me laugh today. It's not allowed. Philo Fournier says wasn't allowed CatDog because one had to shit out the other one's mouth. That's like the most 90s thing in the world. Oh man. So for those of you who get it, you'll absolutely get. You don't even, it just hits you right away. But then there's some, like, especially the younger generation. I'm guessing Hazael is maybe younger generation or much older. You just either you get it or you don't, and it's a very distinct generational thing for people who are a certain age in 1998 to 2005. And then here's another one. Today I learned what songs were banned from being played after 9/11. Let me share my screen.
What was the top charting song on 9/11? Like the most popular song?
This is the perfect example of intelligence over wisdom. You have infinite access.
Now this one doesn't start off well, but just stick with it. Just stick with it. He pulls off the landing here.
To this information. You can easily Google what was the top song on 9/11, but you don't have the wisdom or the experience to know that is not the funny question. The funny question are what songs were banned on 9/12 in response to 9/11 by the corporate radio stations here in America. They banned 164 songs. You can find the list online. Just Google that, but you didn't know to Google that. So here's some of the songs that were banned. Billy Joel, Only the Good Die Young. They could not play that on 9/12. Bruce Springsteen, I'm on Fire. Absolutely not. All Rage Against the Machine songs, they said fuck the whole catalog. Foo Fighters, Learning to Fly. Huh? Elton John, Benny and the Jets. That's right, not on 9/12. Van Halen, Jump. No. Kansas, Dust in the Wind was still in the air in Manhattan, so they couldn't play it. Pat Benatar, Hit Me With Your Best Shot, and Sugar Ray Fly.
What was the top charting song on?
Okay, so apparently this guy, according to Straight Buster, this guy worked with the Biden-Harris team. All right, I didn't know anything about who the guy is. This particular bit was very well executed, and it was very funny, especially if he was intending knowing that he worked with the Biden-Harris team. Maybe he he didn't realize how much of his bit was how much he was being his own bit, with this whole like really performative millennial nerd theater kid kind of affect. Maybe that's just authentically him. It was funny as an ironic performance art kind of thing, which was how I took it. I like to know as little as possible about these people so that I could just construct my own artifice about them. And then I just have my own recreational beliefs, as Scott Adams says. Yeah, he's a good yelling at the phone guy. Yeah. He does that bit really well. And then speaking of 9/11, here's another one. Now this is a fascinating look into the past. I'm curious to see how this affects you guys. Maybe I shouldn't have said anything because I'm kind of priming you a little bit, but I'm just not going to say anything else. I'm just going to play it.
Today, our fellow citizens, our way of life, our very freedom came under attack in a series of deliberate and deadly terrorist acts. The victims were in airplanes, were in their offices, secretaries, businessmen and women, military and federal workers, moms and dads, friends and neighbors. Thousands of lives were suddenly ended by evil, despicable acts of terror. The pictures of airplanes flying into buildings, fires burning, huge structures collapsing, have filled us with disbelief, terrible sadness, and a quiet, unyielding anger. These acts of mass murder were intended to frighten our nation into chaos and retreat. But they have failed. Our country is strong. A great people has been moved to defend a great nation. Terrorist attacks can shake the foundations of our biggest buildings, but they cannot touch the foundation of America. These acts shatter steel, but they cannot dent the steel of American resolve. America is targeted for attack because we're the brightest beacon for freedom and opportunity in the world, and no one will keep that light from shining.
Wasn't that surreal? Okay, now, yes, where's Building 7? Also, I couldn't help but notice that the Pentagon here is there should have been 5, I believe, here for the Pentagon. But you do have Flight 93. Where was it? The random chick just comes through doing a round off here at the end. There's your Flight 93 going off into a field. Now, here's the thing. I remember living in a time where this would have been received exactly like this. Like, you could tell the people watching this, none of them are reacting to it the way we are. They're all like, wow, what a touching a touching memorial of this great traumatic event that we all went through. I don't know if there was a I don't remember what I was going to say. My brain just but I remember living in this time. I remember living where people would have viewed this as, oh wow, that was a very touching thing. They went and they practiced all of this. I've been a part of youth groups where someone would suggest doing something like this, and people would have totally taken this as like a memorial. Now we look back at it, and it's like they're freaking picking a chick up and flying her into another chick and knocking her over. So it seems like a mockery of something sacred, kind of, because 9/11 has been esteemed as it's like the origin point of all the anti-regime conspiracy theories. Basically everybody started in some way related to 9/11. And so there's this weird thing where the behaviors that we saw as treating it like a sacred thing back then now are a mockery. This looks like if someone did this now, they would be just castigated off the planet. This would be like mocking 9/11. But here, this was like a great patriotic sentiment. People were probably getting goosebumps while they're watching it, with Enya playing over a voiceover of George Bush. I remember living in this time. We all collectively participated in something we look back on as a total, complete delusion, like a mass psychosis. And yet this is also like a time that people look to as kind of closer to back when things were good. Everyone looks back fondly. Like right now, the whole like meme of the era is the 90s and the aughts kind of, and moving backward from there. People are digging deeper into the 80s, and it's going to keep going. So in a sense, it's kind of like we're longing to return to a time that was objectively where we were all participating in this great delusion. And yet, as we all participated in this great delusion, things on the ground were objectively better experientially than they are now. I don't even know what to take away from that. Just that you could sit and conduct entire university. You could have an entire university department dedicated to studying all the implications, sociological implications around this. It shouldn't exist because those sorts of departments are gay, but you could theoretically. Okay, so because I could tell my voice is not going to last real long, it's good I got this video here lined up. And I primarily wanted to, Elon, in the midst of all of this continuing resolution bill stuff, signal boosted this fellow here, Kaizen D. Asiedu, and says incredibly well said. And Perry Abassi, you got to follow the guy at Election Legal. I was, to whatever extent I could physically muster laughs yesterday, I was dying. Elon, thank you for sharing this articulate black with me. He is such a treasure. I'm so glad that we have Perry around. But seriously, though, this guy actually does explain the whole thing in pretty good detail. So I'm just gonna play his video.
Congress failed to pass a budget bill, and it looks like we might be heading for a government shutdown. And in large part, this is due to the influence of Elon Musk. Now, depending on how you feel about Elon, you might view this as a positive or a negative thing. And in this video, I'm going to give you comprehensive context on what exactly is going on. And I'm also going to offer you my perspective on the influence of Elon, billionaires more generally, and the legislative process. First, here are the facts. Every year, Congress has from about February until October 1st to pass a bill for the following year. So this year, in 2024, they were forming the budget for 2025. However, if they miss that October 1st deadline, then they form what's called a CR bill, or continuing resolution bill. That bill is meant to be a temporary measure that maintains the prior year's levels of funding in order to prevent a government shutdown. And they need to pass that bill before December 20th, when all the Congress people go home for Christmas, in order to ensure that the government doesn't shut down. Now, the concept of a government shutdown sounds bad, but it's pretty common. There have been 21 government shutdowns in the last 50 years. And even during a government shutdown, essential services are still maintained, like the operation of our military or Social Security. So in this case, the CR bill typically would have just mimicked 2024 levels of funding for 2025. However, there's several things that make this year unique. First is its length. It's 1,547 pages long, and only 8 of them are actually CR bill. The rest of it is about supplemental funding and legislation. The second thing is that rather than just maintaining 2024 levels of funding, there's actually $100 billion extra allocated to this CR bill. Most of that $100 billion is for disaster relief, and that $100 billion constitutes a 6% increase over 2024's budget. Now, you might not have any issues with that, but what's raising hackles is the fact that most Congress people had less than 24 hours to read the entire 1,500-page bill. Most Congress people were given the bill on December 17th and expected to vote on it less than 24 hours later on December 18th. This is because both Democratic and Republican leadership in the House formed the bill, but that process wasn't transparent to the rest of the Congress people. On top of all that, there were specific provisions in the bill that many people objected to, like, for example, the fact that it gave a pay increase to members of Congress. Now, it's worth noting that the pay increase is relatively modest, around 3%, and it's a cost of living increase. That said, many people objected to the fact that Congress people would be giving themselves a pay increase at all, given the state of the country and the fact that many people are struggling to get their bills paid. There's also the fact that the bill would allow Congress people to be exempt from Obamacare, even though the average American is not. Or the fact that the bill allocates funding for the Global Engagement Center, which many people have critiqued as a propaganda instrument and censorship instrument that has been used against the American people and now is getting even more funding. Now, I think it's fair to say that under normal circumstances, the vast majority of Americans would not have any idea what a CR bill is, or the fact that it's being passed, or the fact that it's 1,500 pages and Congress people are given less than 24 hours to read it. But what's unprecedented about this is that Elon Musk heard about it and started posting a lot about the whole situation on X. Because Elon has such a huge following, that caused many people to get into an uproar. And it caused many people to start pressuring their congresspeople and calling their congresspeople to have the CR bill not passed. And for the record, I called Representative Mike Johnson, who is the leader of the Republicans in the House, to express my personal disapproval for the manner in which the CR bill is being passed. And if you feel the same, I recommend that you take action by calling his office too. What Elon and many people were objecting to is the manner in which the CR bill was being passed, the contents of the CR bill, and the timeline for the CR bill being passed as well. And the CR bill did have bipartisan support from leadership of the Democrats and the Republican Party. Now, that leadership has argued that this is a bipartisan bill, and the $100 billion extra is needed for disaster relief that the American people have wanted for months. But I would argue, if that's the case, pass disaster relief as a separate bill, rather than making it part of a 1,500-page behemoth that none of you are even actually reading. And regardless, this is just a fundamentally broken process. We have politicians using money that is not theirs to give themselves pay raises and paying for things that they haven't even read using our money on things that we can't afford. Now, some people have objected to Elon Musk's influence, particularly Democrats. And to that, I'd respond with three things. One, on the partisan angle, there's actually a 2-to-1 ratio of Democratic donors to Republican donors who are billionaires. In fact, in the 2024 election, the Kamala campaign had $1 billion that they spent, whereas the Trump campaign had $400 million. But partisanship aside, Elon is actually quite unique in that we can actually see the influence that he's having in large part. Because in this particular case, his influence was simply using his voice and amplifying it to his large audience. And in reality, it was not just Elon saying that he opposes this, it was the people agreeing that they also oppose the CR process as well. Now, I think it's reasonable to be skeptical of anyone's influence, billionaire or not. And Elon certainly has a lot of influence, and some of it we can't see and is not transparent. But in this particular case, we can see exactly what he was standing for. And his individual voice only helped amplify the voices of millions of people who disagreed with this entire dysfunctional process. Now, on the flip side, do we get to see any of the influence of George Soros or Bill Gates or many of these Democratic mega donors or Republican mega donors for that matter on the democratic process? But all of that aside, I think this is actually a tremendously positive development for all of America. So many of us have become disillusioned with politics because we feel like politicians don't have our best interests in mind, and we feel like no matter who's in office, nothing seems to change. But what's changed this time is that we have a degree of transparency and a public square in X where we can actually speak up and we can actually be listened to if enough of us actually exercise our power as a people. I mean, look at what happened. Elon Musk lit his watchtower, and then the rest of us did as well. And as a result of that public pressure, our elected representatives heard our voice, realized that we're watching, and realized that they could not engage in this dysfunctional process and waste our tax money because they didn't have their shit together. We made it clear to our elected representatives what we actually want done with our money, and they responded. I mean, if that's not democratic principles in action, I don't know what is. The reason we felt so disempowered about American politics for so long is because for so long, the government has operated in secrecy. And when there's secrecy, the government has power over the people. But when there's transparency, the people have power over the government. And this bodes extremely well for the success of DOGE, the Department of Government Efficiency, for the next 4 years. Because now that we've seen that when we have transparency, the voice of the people actually matters, imagine what's going to happen when there's a dedicated department that is focused on bringing transparency to the people so that we can call out abuses of power and make sure that our money is responsibly spent. So are there things to watch out for with the influence of billionaires more generally? Of course. Are there things to watch out for with the influence of Elon Musk in particular? Of course. But at least we can see what he's doing. And in this case, I think what he's doing is a good thing.
All right. So the reason I wanted to play that whole thing for you was, for one, because he summarizes the whole thing well, but also because this here is mainstream politics now. This guy is obviously LG Brand Walsh says, I'd love to take this dude to a North Philly barbershop. The brothers would trigger their sickle cell clowning on him. Yes, this guy absolutely lives around a bunch of white people. But so he's obviously just like he's a classical liberal, probably a big Dave Rubin fan. He's squish lib, whatever. But everything that he said here is actually completely true. And Elon signal boosting this puts that perspective in front of a whole bunch of people who've never even heard of a continuing resolution bill or don't even know. Like, I had to go kind of look and refresh myself of the process and have all the ins and outs and intricacies of what's going on here. It's not something I've kept top of mind. And I'm probably in the, I don't know, top 5% of most politically focused people in the country. So the vast majority of people have the foggiest idea what's going on. This is probably the first time that they've ever seen something like this, really, and paid any attention to it. Suddenly now there's a gigantic microscope with the existence of Doge and its popularity and the libs all freaking out about it. There's now a gigantic microscope on this entire process. And they're all operating completely out in the open. So they have to calculate their moves a lot more effectively here, and they may not fully appreciate just how much that's the case. So a lot of people see how this thing blows up on Twitter, which was, I've never seen. I've had notifications on for Elon's tweets for a very long time. I've never seen him go on a midday tweet spree like he did, I don't remember, days run together, yesterday, day before, whenever this whole thing started. He was going ham. It was very obvious that he was doing something. He was whipping Twitter up into a frenzy to focus on this issue and draw attention to Thomas Massey and Vivek and Chip Roy is this guy who they decide that they have it out for, and then a bunch of dirt gets dredged up about Chip Roy, which is interesting. Now suddenly his seat got a lot hotter because people found out what he said about Ken Paxton, and maybe in the past when he made these comments, they didn't really know who Chip Roy or Ken Paxton was, so it didn't register on their radar. But now they're paying attention because this thing's turned into a whole to-do. And now they're like, wait a second, I like that Ken Paxton guy. You went after him. Fuck you. Now I'm going to make it my life's mission to take you down, Mr. Chip Roy. These are the sorts of dynamics that are developing here in American politics now. Ryan Isaac says, Cerno seeing all that info and go full anti-chip was interesting. Yes, so you've got guys like Cernovich, you've got Posobiec, you've got, to some degree, Steve Bannon. You've got a number of these guys who are like, they're like second order removed from the inner circle. They're maybe sometimes inner circle, sometimes outer circle, kind of moving back and forth, but they all have their own little agendas. So as the information flows down, they take it and go their own different directions with it. So there's a lot of different factions moving around. But it's pretty undeniable that the way this whole thing panned out was not exactly how anyone planned. And it strikes me as it was a trial run, kind of. This was a sort of like the demonstration of a new weapon system. Like, we need to go out and we need to try it out in the field for the first time. So this is part of the mechanism of what the Doge is going to be, the relationship between X and the Doge. And then the different congressmen and senators are starting to get isolated and cornered. And then periodically either Musk or Trump can call that guy out by name, and then he gets under a bunch of heat, and there's some little segment of the cottage industry that'll go over there and latch onto him and make it their professional obligation to take that guy down. What we're seeing here is functionally the elimination of Congress. On a long enough timeline, Congress is going to be replaced. I've got to give credit to Jason Miranchuk. He was the first one who got me looking this way, and now once I started looking at it, it became abundantly obvious. Congress has had their role has been merely a formality for a long time, but we kind of like pretend that they have power, and they kind of do have power if they execute it in a certain way. Some of them do, but it's only contingent upon their backers. When their backers have their back and when they don't. And so, like, whether Congress actually has power or doesn't is kind of the whole name of the game. But we're moving in the direction of AI Congress. Right now, it's already getting close to that. I mean, if you think about, like, Congress, I was thinking about this the other day, like, if Congress is searching on Google for information to inform themselves. Now, that's obviously not the only way that they get informed, but that is a way they get informed. And their Google searches are informed by algorithms. Then, to a degree, you've got 10% AI Congress. Maybe it's 3% or something. But some percentage of your Congress is now controlled by AI. And so you just start dialing that up. And there's going to be tremendous appetite. There's no love for Congress at all. There would be tremendous appetite to be able to just replace AI replace Congress with an actual AI, like Grok. And then Congress would love it because they'd be like, oh, Grok told me to. This is why there's such a battle over how the AI models are going to be built, whether they're going to be closed source or open source, whether there's going to be regulatory capture, the Sam Altman route, which is you have some global governance board that controls the AI that operates your government, has like root control on every single thing in the economy, or if it's going to be open source and there's going to be a free market and a competition in that. This is like the huge dividing line between the Peter Thiel, Elon Musk, Mark Andreessen, that side of the Silicon Valley world, and the Sam Altman, Bill Gates, Google side. This is really where like Silicon Valley is becoming the United States. All the inter-Silicon Valley battles are now being had at the nation state level. And that's because that's where all the technological development has been done, and political power is going to follow technology. Okay, let's keep going here because I have so much I could say, but I'm going to lose my voice if I talk too much. This is a part that from the original bill, they tried to slip this little nugget in here. And Powerful Mutual, John Harold, Patel Patriot, who's had a very interesting theory he's been working on for a while, the devolution continuity of government theory. There's some interesting stuff in there. He said, this section of the CR is insane. Why is this included in a spending bill?
Okay, guys, I got to show you something here. I'm going through the continuing resolution, the table of contents. I'm just looking for anything that sticks out as not having to do with funding. Okay, and I came across this in section 605, title 6. Treatment of electronic services provided for House offices. Thought it was a little weird, so I went and looked at it. We're going to go through this real quick. They're talking about this Office of the Chief of Administrative Officer. They're giving some definitions here, what electronic communication services are, what House data is, and House data is with respect to a House office, any electronic mail, emails, other electronic or data communication, other data in general, including metadata, or other information of the House office. Very broad, pretty much anything that is produced by what is called a House office. And then they define the term House office, which is any employing office whose salaries or expenses are dispersed by the Office of the Chief Administrative Officer. Never even heard of this position before, but I went and looked. Right now, this lady, Catherine Zippendor, she's in charge of it, and they are charged with carrying out all the administrative functions of the House, including human resources, information resources, payroll, etc. So I'm pretty sure the entirety of like the House, the payroll comes from here. So right off the bat, this section of this continuing resolution is very broad. Pretty much anything that any electronic data or data in general that comes out of the House is pretty much covered by this section of this bill. Okay, so we go down and they go through like retaining possession, even though the chief administrative officer might have the data in her possession or it goes through her servers or something. It's still technically owned by the House members. Okay, this is where it's crazy. Notwithstanding any other provision of law or rule of civil or criminal procedure, the office of the CAO or anybody in there shall not be barred through operation of any court order or any statutory provision from notifying the House office of any legal process seeking disclosure of House data of the House office that is transmitted, processed, stored, whatever. Okay, so what this is saying is, let's say what's her name again? Catherine. Let's say Catherine gets a grand jury subpoena about we'll make up a hypothetical Congress member named Schmancy Colosi, and she gets the grand jury subpoena for all of Schmancy's emails because maybe they believe there's a crime that was committed or something. Who knows? Because of this bill, Catherine is going to have to notify Schmancy immediately that somebody is looking in and trying to get her data, her House data, okay? That's part one. Part two in this, it says, motions to quash or modify. Upon a motion made promptly by a House office or provider for a House office, a court of competent jurisdiction shall quash or modify any legal process directed to the provider for a House office if compliance with the legal process would require the disclosure of House data of the House office. So this allows any House member who gets their emails subpoenaed, let's just, again, hypothetically by a grand jury, to quash that subpoena. Pretty much no questions asked, it says here. That is insane. And then it goes on even further. In the effective date section here, any legal process seeking disclosure of House data of a House office that is filed, issued, or made on or after the date of enactment of this act, so anything, today moving forward, or anything that's pending on or after the date of the enactment of this act. So anything that was like filed before and is a matter pending right now, they can quash it and make it disappear. Why the fuck is this in a spending bill? Make it make sense.
So I don't think that particular section, I think that was removed. But it is very interesting that it was included. More scrambling to try to cover themselves as much as possible on their way out. Questions I would have is, first of all, as High Powered says, you could have a gun ban in one of these CRs and it would probably pass. Yeah, which is interesting, given that they could get things like that in there. It's interesting that they haven't tried. Maybe because something like that would be too provocative. They know that they wouldn't actually be able to handle the political fallout from it. What was I going to say? The other point was, it just escaped the sick head brain. If this was something that was in there, now again, I haven't seen the details on the new bill because the voting was happening on it right as I was going live, so I don't know all the details on it just yet. But if this was something that was in there that was removed, then it's interesting that the DOGE players, none of them really highlighted this. This is something that John Harold found, and then it was picked up by like Real American News or whatever it's called, and Jimmy Dore picked it up as well. A few other people talked about it. But this wasn't something that you would think they would be, that you'd think this would be the type of thing that'd be really easy for them to highlight. Like, hey, look, they're trying to protect themselves. So I don't know if they weren't aware that it was in there, or, which I find kind of hard to believe, if they were aware that this particular thing was in there and the implications that would have, then it's interesting that they're not calling it out. They didn't say anything about it. So I don't have a really an intuition or a speculation either way. There's only so much that we can see from out here. Anyhow, let's keep going here. So Chip Roy, you had the first bill, which was like 1,500 something pages. Then you have the second bill, which was like 115 pages or something like that. Chip Roy was opposed to both of them. It's his old bill, $110 billion in deficit spending, unpaid for, $0 increase in the national credit card. New bill, $110 billion in deficit spending, unpaid for, $4 trillion plus debt ceiling increase with $0 in structural reforms for cuts. Time to read the bill, 1.5 hours. I will vote no. Now, he was one of quite a few Republicans who voted against the second bill. One of them was Thomas Massey. Now, here's where there's really this is the sort of issue that's really going to divide the libertarian and the populist sides of the MAGA world. Will Chamberlain says, there's a number of big problems with Chip's mode of thinking, and if you understand them, you'll understand why Trump and Elon are right and why Chip is wrong. The analogy between the debt ceiling and a credit card limit is terrible. If you fail to pay off credit card debt, ultimately you'll declare personal bankruptcy where a court will simply wipe away your debts. Your credit rating will go down, the bank will write off some debt, no big deal. If the United States government defaults on its debts, catastrophic consequences would ensue all over the globe. U.S. treasuries are the backbone of the global financial system. The security of treasuries isn't just the backbone of our economic power, they're the backbone of our military power too. The debt ceiling always gets raised because it has to be raised because no president can just let the country default. Trump, rightly, wants the debt ceiling raised now. Republicans will have a tiny, unworkable majority in Trump's first term. Because there's a small faction of Republicans that effectively won't vote for debt ceiling increases, Trump will be forced to make concessions to Democrats to get their votes, in the same way that Biden had to make concessions to McCarthy in the last debt ceiling fight a couple years ago. That sucks. We don't want that. There's a lot of work to be done on the fiscal front. Elon and Vivek are just getting started, and I'm confident based just on this CR debate that they will be able to force Congress around to their way of thinking. But you have to be able to take W's, and you have to realize that in a world where Republicans have the White House and thin majorities in the House and Senate, debt ceiling brinkmanship helps Democrats and hurts Trump and us. This person says, Chip wants to hit the current ceiling and have no money for mass deportations. Will Chamberlain says, you do need money to achieve your policy objectives, don't you? So here's where it's really going to divide the libertarian and the populist sides of the MAGA camp. The libertarians are going to say, no, you need to keep the debt because if we take away this fig leaf, then the debt could just get so much worse. But here's the thing. It's a fig leaf. But it's a fig leaf that in certain times can be really powerful and in other times it can't be. And Democrats restraining Republicans from like putting fiscal handcuffs on them, they're not doing that for the good of the economy. If their motivation in placing fiscal handcuffs on the Republicans is not because it's good for the economy, fill in the blank. Where this administration, and particularly this next year of this administration, not even that, the first 6 months of the administration are going to require some absolutely massive fiscal and monetary moves. And at this point, the gambit is kind of like you gave Trump and Elon a mandate, you being the Trump voter. You gave Trump and Elon a mandate. We believe that you guys are the ones who are best suited to solve this problem that's going to need some drastic things done, get really inventive and really creative ways to solve this problem. And they're very clearly assembling, probably even grading on a political curve, they're assembling the best team, the most competent group of people who could take something like this on. Especially if you look at guys like Scott Bessent at the Treasury, Howard Lutnick at Commerce, Vivek and Elon together at DOGE. Like the domestic policy people that they've put together are genuinely very, very good and actually seem to have their mind wrapped around what the issue really is. Scott Bessent is talking about how we need a Bretton Woods 2.0. He's been on this for years now, and particularly in this last year. He's coming in with a plan for how to go about this, and I think for the first time, we have the potential to have a Fed and a Treasury who are both operating in lockstep from a pro-America perspective. So I want this administration to have their hands as untethered. I want them to have as much flexibility as possible because things are going to get real wonky for a little bit. They're going to need to be able to react to things in real time because markets are going to be going all frickin' over the place. And having to go deal with people like, hold on. I had this tab open later, but it fits now, so I'll bring it up now. I do not want them to have to deal with people like this. So this is the Democrats' response to all this has been trying to drive a wedge between Musk and Trump by calling him President Musk and saying Trump is like the vice president. They're trying to hit at Trump's ego. And Elon has been directly highlighting these things and saying, yes, this is what they're doing. It's not going to work. It's so fascinating to watch how this is all working now. The Democrats have their new strategy, and then people on Twitter call it out, and then Elon highlights it and brings it up. And you can imagine Trump and Elon sitting there like at the table with each other and like, oh, look, they're calling me President Musk. Oh, they're trying to get at your ego. And Trump's like, oh, yeah, they're trying to get at my ego. Oh, I'm so offended. But this woman here, this gremlin screaming about President Musk is the most powerful Democrat in Congress on all things U.S. federal budget. She was chair of the House Appropriations Committee for the first 2 years of Biden and has been the number one Democrat there since the GOP won the 2022 midterms. This is Rosa DeLauro. How in the hell does this person wind up like, look at her. If she came up to you and asked you for a job like weeding your garden, I probably wouldn't trust her doing that. And she's 81. There are people in Connecticut who cast a vote for this.
They got scared because President Musk told them, President Musk said, don't do it. Don't do it. shut the government down. Imagine. What does he know?
Elon says, fun fact, she was a Skeksis in Dark Crystal. There's a deep cut for you. And this is her after they couldn't pass the second one.
Now, all of a sudden, we have an outside influence who believes, I think he is president, and that's President Musk, who has not elected, has no authority, and trying to really upend what the services are to the American people.
You can tell, looking at her, and listening to her, that this is a stupid person. Like, I'm not saying she's like stupid as in like, oh, she's stupid and I don't like her. No, she's like genuinely not smart. She might be senile. I don't know what she was like 20 or 30 years ago. I mean, 20 or 30 years ago, she might have been senile. She's in her 80s. How on earth does a person like that wind up in a position of power and nobody know who they are? Well, now everyone knows who she is. Elon has been going on a tear, tweeting about how this creature needs to get out of here. Like, this creature needs to be removed from office. She doesn't belong anywhere near the levers of power. So I think sorry. I think that this entire ordeal here has been in the way that like Matt Gaetz being nominated was a way to for attorney general was a way to test the loyalty of people who are in the people in the Senate. I think this is a way of starting to pick out who in the House is going to play ball and who's not. And it's also putting Mike Johnson on the hot seat. And it's drawing out people like Chip Roy, like this other chick. And it's making the Democrats take a big fat L. But I think it's also a proof of concept for the DOGE process, what they're wanting to do. They're conditioning, they're seasoning Twitter to engage in this process like this. And one thing that I started identifying immediately was a lot of different people who are grabbing the text of these bills, throwing them into Grok, and having Grok summarize it. This is like thousands of people are doing this now. So very quickly, there's going to be accounts who specialize in this, which is going to completely neuter the ability for Congress to jam these types of massive omnibus bills through. They're just not going to be able to do it anymore. The nature of Congress has changed already completely. Mike Johnson is a guy who's come under a tremendous amount of fire in all of this. And it's interesting to me that this is happening after Mike Johnson spent a couple of weeks just kind of gallivanting around and being at all the private parties and everything with Trump and Elon. So I would just say that in all the things going back and revolving around Mike Johnson here, be very, very aware of the potential for kayfabe. Don't step in any kayfabe. Here's Mike Lee calling for Mike Johnson to step down.
Well, I don't think Johnson likes you now. Next time you guys see each other walking through the halls of Congress, he's going to probably kick you in the leg.
He is a good man. He's a friend. He's been a long friend for a long time. Great person. He's lost control of this process.
Okay.
And I don't know how he can remain in power. All right. We need Elon or Vivek as speaker.
He's a friend, and you just threw him overboard. Man,
yes,
politics is tough, Senator Lee.
Well, it is, especially when you try to jam an entire country with the 1,500-page bill that nobody's read, and you try to trick them and bully them into doing it. Some of us take that personally, Jesse.
Yeah, no, I don't like it either. I think it's terrible, and we got to stop doing it, and it's got to stop now. All right.
It's very interesting little interaction there between the two of them. You might be able to linger on that a little longer, but I won't here. Here he says Elon or Vivek should be House Speaker. Well, interesting that he mentions that because Rand Paul, who is obviously a close associate of Mike Lee's, said the Speaker of the House need not be a member of Congress. Nothing would disrupt the swamp more than electing Elon Musk. Think about it. Nothing's impossible, not to mention the joy at seeing the collective establishment, aka Uniparty, lose their ever-loving minds. And Amuse over here said, "Well, I'm a huge fan of Elon's. I think it would be a mistake to elect him speaker. He's got a lot on his plate. He's a close presidential advisor, co-chair of DOGE. He's busy protecting free speech at X, saving the world at Tesla, and saving humanity at SpaceX. I'd recommend getting Vivek. He's got less on his plate and would be a very effective speaker to ensure Trump's agenda is advanced. Just my 2 cents." And Elon says, not a bad idea. So there seems to be legs to this, and I wonder to what extent this has been, I talk about kayfabe. I wonder to what extent this has been orchestrated from the get-go. The whole plan all along has been Vivek as speaker, and they've lined it up this way intentionally. I don't think that that's any sort of a stretch. Like, that's not even 4D chess. This is still like checkers. But Vivek himself said, the last 72 hours highlighted the positive impact that DOGE can have, but it also laid bare the massive lift ahead next year. We're ready for it. And this, to me, reads as confirmation of exactly what I suspect, that the purpose of the way the last 72 hours has the purpose of the way that it's unfolded was specifically to highlight the positive impact that DOGE can have. They've got their picture now. They've got their stack of 1,500 pages and stack of 118 pages. The actual substance of them really doesn't matter that much, frankly, because, like, what? There's another big pork-filled bill? Oh, no. Whoop-de-doo. Oh, they traded it for this other thing, so they took out a whole bunch of this stuff, and then they got this other thing, and oh, no, it wasn't a complete win. Whatever. Whoop-de-doo. Yet another in a long line of them. The upside of the DOGE getting a huge marketing win and being able to game theory out some and kind of practice in real time, testing strategies and stuff, I think is immensely valuable. And I got to say at this point, if you don't think that the DOGE is going to have major success, you're trapped in 10 years ago. There is way too much expertise and competence and sincere, genuine political willpower behind it. Just listen to any of these guys talk. Any of the guys affiliated with it, adjacent with it, they're not talking about this like, oh, we're going to go in and kind of make some big valiant show of things and then sort of fall short. No, they're like, this is our opportunity to completely overhaul the way the government is done. They're speaking in like revolutionary cycles. This is the next American Revolution. And I'm saying, like, AI Congress is the direction this is going. Jason is exactly right. This is one of the most tightest collection of talent and funding and political willpower that has ever been assigned to a project in the country's history. I mean, they themselves are calling back to the New Deal or the American Revolution. They're also talking about the robber barons. These are the terms that they're using to describe what they're doing, and they're making it very clear that they see this as an existential matter of national security. So I mean, doubt them at your own peril. Here are the terms that Elon is speaking in. Unless DOGE ends the career of deceitful pork barrel politicians, the waste and corruption will never stop. Therefore, there is no choice but to do so. I wish there was another way, but there is not. So in the middle of all of this, he's straight up telling them, we are going to end your careers. I wish there was another way, but there's not. Sorry. We're going to end your careers. And there's no way that you can't frame, you have to really tie yourself into a knot to somehow frame this whole way this has panned out as anything but a W for the DOGE project. It's showing that it's absolutely going to be effective. Doesn't mean they're going to take 100% wins. Like, that's not how this works. You give up a pawn, you take a bishop, you know. QWERTY YYZ with some leaf bucks says AI Congress? Nah, Twitter Congress. Well, yeah. by proxy, basically. Here's some regime libs desperately trying to pretend that their world isn't caving in around them.
He's oftentimes relying on random anonymous accounts, these websites, these users on X who are trying to present themselves as the new CNN, the new New York Times, but have no research behind them, no backing, no institutional knowledge.
No institutional knowledge. Oh man, no institutional knowledge. Just anonymous accounts on Twitter. You know what? They are just anonymous accounts on Twitter. And they have more research and institutional knowledge than you could ever fit between your big dumb ears.
That's really appealing. It's exciting on his platform, but he ends up misleading a lot of people. It is striking how he does seem to be learning about.
Has Dana Bash had a stroke? I mean that honestly. Why does the left side of her face always look like it's melting? Like it's falling off of her?
All making in real time. And just a moment ago, he tweeted about all the coverage of him in the last 24 hours. There's been all these questions, Dana. Is he the real president-elect? Is he the shadow president? Well, Musk responded on X. He says the political and legacy media puppets are all echoing the same idea, parroting the same message, trying to drive a wedge between Trump and me. And Musk adds, they will fail. I don't think anybody's trying to drive a wedge except those Democrats who are saying it. Journalists are just trying to understand the relationship between Trump and Musk, because it's one of the most important relationships of the next 4 years.
We're literally calling it as we see it. Elon Musk put out on social media that he didn't like the bill. Then there was a statement from Donald Trump and J.D. Vance, and then everything fell apart. Brian, thanks for coming on. Appreciate it. Have a good holiday.
The speculation, of course, here is that Trump and Vance were sitting there waiting to hear. They were like, I wonder what we're supposed to think. I wonder what position we're supposed to take. Oh, finally, Elon tweeted. Okay, all right. Here's Trump. Make your post. These people somehow run stories about how Trump and Elon are like joined at the hip, and yet then they're like, well, technically Elon tweeted it first. So Elon tweeted it, and then Trump and Vance tweeted it. So actually, they're following his lead. He's the one that's in charge now. Again, these are very, very, very stupid people, and you should never fear them. Mock them. Laugh at them. Here's another gambit. Biden admin is hiring 1,200 DEI bureaucrats before handing over to Trump. The jobs offer annual salaries of up to $310,000 and could inflate the federal payroll by $160 million annually. Man, it sucks to be these people. They're going to get hired and then turned around and immediately fired. Daily Wire reporter Luke Rosiak explains how the Biden administration is sabotaging the Trump administration before President Biden packs his bags.
The federal government reportedly looking to hire up to 1,200 new DEI, that is diversity, equity and inclusion bureaucrats, before Trump takes office. Luke Rosiak, an investigative reporter at the Daily Wire, he joins me now. Why are they doing this, Luke, when they know that Trump's going to get rid of all these bureaucrats when he takes office?
How does this dude possibly... I mean, I guess if you're going to go on legacy press, maybe you just don't even dignify him with any measure of professionalism. But, I mean, this is Stu Varney, right? That's his name? I mean, he's a pretty cool guy. Look how dapper he looks. And this guy looks like a fucking schlub. The Daily Wire, they aren't sending their best.
Hey, Stu. Yeah, it does seem like an effort to sandbag the Trump administration in the same way these auctioning off pieces of the border wall or signing these union contracts that extend through 2029. Even a lot of Democrats are saying after the election that kind of admitting that these DEI people are very divisive and haven't really improved anything. And yet here he is signing it, in the waning days of administration. You go to usajobs.gov where they advertise job listings, 1,200 jobs being hired right now. And this is in addition to all the DEI people that already work inside of the government. And these are people that are going to be joining the permanent civil service. So Trump is going to have to figure out some way to get rid of them, and I'm sure he's going to figure out some way, but it's going to be difficult. So this is basically the deep state preparing to sabotage the Trump administration.
But that's
then there was another right here. Yeah, before this, Unga the Great says, before Trump took office in 2016, Obama implemented a mass hiring strategy to maintain insight within the Trump administration. I believe they're attempting something similar now, disguising it as DEI hires. Yeah, I mean, at the very least, even say that their hands are just completely tied and there was nothing they could do whatsoever. They couldn't just fire them or something. They could offer them massive severance packages that pay them way more than they're going to get from actually working the job. Tell them, go away for 2 years. We're going to pay you an exorbitant sum of money to go away for 2 years, and it's more than worth it. That's the thing about all of this. So the rumor is the way that they're going to do this is, and they're sending all these signals about it. They're explicitly talking about the impoundment. What is it? The Impoundment Control Act. This is they're signaling this. What's going to happen is there's going to be an audit declared on day one. All of the NGOs, all the agencies, all of their funding is going to get frozen with an audit, and then they're going to be legally challenging the act. I think it's called the Impoundment Control Act, which says basically that the executive branch is obligated to spend the money apportioned them by Congress. They're going to challenge that directly and say, no, we do not have to spend this money. So you can allocate it, but we're not going to spend it. And they're going to take that to the Supreme Court, and they're expecting the Supreme Court is going to respect that. So, and then because of the Chevron deference case, there's a whole bunch of this stuff that is now a whole bunch of agency activities that are just plainly illegal, and so they could be shut down under the auspices of this audit. This is how they're planning on cutting that $2 trillion, and there's a very realistic possibility of them doing it. They've got the legal teams and everything. It's the most competent group of people who have ever been assembled in recent history to go after a project like this. So I don't have any doubt that they have a lot of leeway. When you're dealing with trillions of dollars, you can pay a lot of money up front to get a problem, basically pay out a bankruptcy in effect, and then free up your account going forward, especially with some of the balance sheet stuff that they can do with gold and with Bitcoin. The problem with all of these things is they just have to get their order of operations right. And it doesn't matter, no matter how they do it, it's going to get real tumultuous because they're not going to be able to get everything right. And things are, when you're dealing with massively over leveraged sums and all these different capital markets leveraged against each other, little moves can cause massive ripples. And they're also signaling this is what's coming. Be prepared for some turmoil. But then there's going to be good stuff on the back end. It's going to be difficult to bring back all of this manufacturing. It's going to take time to bring it in. But once they do, they're lining things up for being able to take off very well afterwards. My brain is starting to get sauced here, but I got another interesting story here with the AfD and Elon. So apparently we have another one of these European e-girl political commentator chicks. It says Chancellor frontrunner slams Musk and Malay. The presumptive next chancellor, Friedrich Merz from the CDU, is horrified by the idea that Germany should follow Elon Musk and Javier Malay's example. He staunchly rejects a pro-freedom approach and refuses any discussion with the AfD. AfD of the Ausländer Rausch fame. And Elon said, only the AfD can save Germany. Now, this tweet definitely lit a bunch of people on fire. And, okay, hold on. Where did was it back here? Oh, yeah, here we go. So Mike Ben said, I guarantee you right now as we speak, there are 100 frantic phone calls being made between NATO Stratcom in Riga, NATO Hybrid COE in Helsinki, and NATO political committee czars at NATO HQ in Brussels, all ablaze and scheming in a maddening flurry, all set off by this tweet. And he says, this is just a taste of the reason why, but will help you understand why NATO will stop at nothing to stop what Elon just tweeted tonight from happening. And this is a tweet he made over a year ago, October of 2023. Mike Benz said, "Memo to Elon, here's why they're coming after you in what must look like an absurd side attack around some obscure upstart political party in Germany. It's all about the LNG. AfD wants cheap Russian gas, massive threat to Biden world, plus BlackRock's grand Ukraine energy play." Now, what makes this even more interesting is the events in Germany today with the Christmas parade and the Saudi Arabian guy who drove a vehicle into the parade. Now, suddenly, the migration issue is going to have a resurgence in the news in Germany in the middle of all the rest of this. And right now is when Elon chooses to signal boost AfD. He's got to know exactly what he's doing. But I'll give you some of the background here. Play this from Mike Benz.
Hey, I'm making this video about Germany's AfD party on the off chance that Elon Musk sees this. There's a whole sort of geopolitical intrigue around the German AfD party that nobody really is privy to unless you study the blob, the U.S. foreign policy blob around the State Department, the Defense Department, and the IC, that you just have to know about, because so much about internet censorship, the history of it, comes out of this attempt to quell this party and related movements all over Europe. So the German AfD party, and by the way, just as a backstory, I just saw that Elon Musk got accused by somebody of being like a sympathizer for this party, the AfD, Alternative for Deutschland. It's a populist party in Germany. And Elon Musk responded that he didn't know AfD from a hole in the ground. And so here, let's cover that hole.
Reminder, this video that when he's recording this was in October of 2023.
So when the migrant crisis popped off in Europe, 2013, 2015, that is what gave rise to this whole right-wing populist movement in Europe. The Brexit vote in the UK, Marine Le Pen populist party on the right in France, Matteo Salvini in Italy, the Vox party in Spain, the Greek National Party in Greece, and its iteration essentially in Germany was something called the Alternative for Deutschland, AfD. And the knock on them is that they're racist or they're anti-Semitic or hate speech or misogynist or they tried to hit them with these hate speech predicates for a long time for wanting to basically close the border into Europe. But that's not what's going on here. You have to understand, just like this hate speech predicate is almost never what they say it is, there's almost always a geopolitical reason, and they're shoehorning it in to create a censorship predicate to kill their popularity online and thus kill them as a politically viable institution since they don't have mainstream media support. It's all about the LNG, okay? Liquefied natural gas, the gas market, okay? That's the story of AfD. That's the story of the State Department's involvement, the Biden family's involvement, and the entire internet censorship. Europe all grew out of, okay, let me take a step back. In 2016, when Trump won the election on November 8th, 2016, all these State Department people thought they were all going to get promotions when Hillary Clinton won the election to join basically the National Security Council in the White House. They all thought they were going to get promoted because Hillary was going to win. Instead, the 90-10 underdog, Trump, ends up winning, and they all get fired. So this State Department network had just done a roadshow in Europe to be the sanctions coordinators to get all the European countries to sanction Europe after the Crimea annexation in 2014. So from 2014 to 2016, they were all up on Europe to get them to cut their own legs off to sanction Russia. When they lost the 2016 election, and the Brexit vote also happened just months earlier, they did that same dirty diplomats cabal roadshow to Europe, but this time, instead of getting them to do sanctions, to get them to do censorship. And this culminated in August 2017 with the passage in Germany of something called NetzDG. NetzDG was this sprawling, first-of-its-kind, Western world internet censorship law that effectively required artificial intelligence content moderation to take down speech within 48 hours or else face a $54 million penalty from the German government for doing this. So if Facebook and Twitter and YouTube and Reddit and anyone wanted to do business in Germany, they had to have AI censorship techniques implemented on their platforms. Okay? That's the origin of that. And that wasn't Germany's idea. That was a U.S. State Department, UK Foreign Office operation. And one of the things you have to understand is the grand Ukrainian energy play here is all the Russian gas that used to come into Europe. It used to be 100% of their natural gas. Now it's down to until recently, it was down to 35% because of a decade and a half of energy diversification, basically strong-arm diplomacy that was done. But the whole play was, if you privatize Ukraine's assets, their gas assets, particularly Naftogaz, the state gas company, but then all the little private ones like Burisma, you get them in Wall Street and London stakeholder hands. So you take the publicly held nut, the entire revenue generator of Ukraine, which is the transit point for the Russian gas, if you privatize it so that it's U.S. State Department essentially profits, the stakeholders, but it's no longer held by the government, now it's privately held by us, but then you kill Gazprom and force imports of Houston LNG or Shell LNG in London. You run it through ports either in Spain, Portugal, or Poland, which became the big one. They connected the network in Poland so that you could ship in through the Baltic and then just keep the same gas transit architecture into Central Europe from there. Then you would have hundreds of billions of windfall profits because you become the monopoly supplier by kicking out the cheap Russian gas, which is orders of magnitude cheaper than having to ship it across the Atlantic Ocean coming from the Permian Basin. The problem is AfD, this German populist party, is a workers' party. It's a workers' movement. It's a lower and lower middle class movement of people who, one of their planks, just like with the MAGA movement in the U.S. and just like with Marine Le Pen's in France and the whole litany, is that the energy prices were insane. The cost of living was too high. Russia was offering cheap gas, so we got these Nord Stream pipeline, the second Nord Stream pipeline coming online. They wanted this cheap energy from Russia, and that fucked over the entire State Department Grand Ukraine energy play and all what the stakeholders had been banking on for a decade before that, especially in 2014, 2015. BlackRock made a huge move into LNG. Hunter Biden was personally nut riding the entire industry ecosystem. He was on the board of Burisma, along with Cover Black, former 30 years at the CIA. That whole Devon Archer, the whole Biden family corruption is about the LNG market. And that only happens if Russia's kicked out. And AfD, they're being called, hate speech, has nothing to do with that. It's the cold, hard cash of the LNG market. That's what it's all about. And you can read up on the Integrity Initiative documents where they plotted this whole thing secretly. Ann Applebaum, Ben Nimmo, Peter Pomerantsev, Bill Browder, that whole network, so much was dedicated to the fact that AfD was crushing it in the polls. And if they won, then it kills the entire Grand Ukraine energy play. So everything that you're seeing around this, because understand, Germany is the industrial powerhouse of Europe, okay? If they turn populist, then the entire foothold goes. So that's why they're going after Elon Musk with this. And Elon Musk doesn't necessarily, I don't blame him for not knowing, AfD from a hole in the ground. But the reason they're coming at him from this angle is because that's the center of the op in Europe.
So this was a year ago. He recorded this, put it out. It went viral. He did it quoting Elon. And Elon has since become very well aware of who Mike Benz is. So I don't think that it's a, let me see, was there something else on here? Yeah, he says, may I remind you that on NATO's official website, they start their history by saying NATO was created to keep the Americans in, the Russians out, and the Germans down. Sorry, brain just went again. So I don't see that tweet from Elon, the timing of it right now, as being a coincidence. It doesn't seem like a throwaway tweet to me. There's something here, but teasing out all the different players is it's starting to get very complicated. And this, because as I look at the incentive structure here, it seems to me like the Trump administration's posture toward Germany would be, we want Germany using our energy. We don't want Germany using Russian LNG. We want them using ours. So I would expect the Trump administration to have a natural, basically hostile relationship to the AfD. For that reason, just an economic matter. However, if they start boosting AfD and lending them legitimacy, then it really starts to fracture the coalition in Europe and starts picking them off from each other, especially going after Germany. So then after he made that tweet, then Elon signal boosted this one from Fisher King, another one of our guys. He said the head of Germany's Alternative for Deutschland party is Alice Weidel. She has a PhD in economics, worked previously at Goldman Sachs and at the Bank of China. She speaks English and Mandarin. She's a lesbian married to a woman originally from Sri Lanka. In television programs, she comes off as calm, collected, and thoughtful. She's about as globalist and cosmopolitan as they come in terms of background, but she's an immigration restrictionist, so that makes her far right and extreme. Just that one issue makes people lose their minds. And I mean, my German brothers. Look what they've done to my right-wing German parties, man. Elon says, obviously not far right, just common sense policies. And then Trump, also in the middle of all of this, Trump says he told the European Union it's tariffs all the way if they don't start buying up American oil and gas. He says, I told the European Union that they must make up their tremendous deficit with the United States by the large-scale purchase of our oil and gas. Otherwise, it is tariffs all the way. Now, I haven't gone and looked at the history in detail of the United States and the EU countries and their tariff relationships, but I know that I know about the Marshall Plan, and this to me looks like a direct repudiation of that. It's weird that this didn't get quite as many headlines as I would have expected it to, because this seems like a bombshell. Where Trump is coming in and he's not just like, we're going to tariff people that don't play ball with us. He's telling the European Union, we are going to place tariffs on you guys. This is a complete about-face from the past. And then I just saw someone mentioned while that Ben's piece was playing that they're tying the driver to AfD. So if they're tying this driver to AfD, man, things are going to get real squirrely. All of these things are all connected. And I'm not smart enough to try to pick out the relationships of all of them to one another, but man, the next year is going to get real squirrely. All right, last couple stories I got here. Our favorite spy has shagged another one. Here is we get to see the aftermath of one here. So James O'Keefe had one of his sting operations with this guy Henry Appel, and then he went and followed up with him afterwards. And this is enjoyable watching him squirm.
Henry Appel, National Security Council. Hi, I'm James O'Keefe, investigative reporter and muckraker. This is you on hidden camera. Cool. Hey, you're lucky I'm not a Chinese spy. You are a very lucky man that I'm not a Chinese spy. But I gotta ask you a question. What the hell is the guy who's an advisor to the National Security Council doing, spilling the quote tea to an undercover journalist?
Well, here's the tea. Joe Biden is like dead. We're trying to fund it.
What type of national security operation you boys running in the United States government? And you used to be a spy.
Oh, I always thought I was going to be a spy.
You thought what?
I thought I was going to be a spy. And I did that for a little while.
What type of spy are you? So, where are you going? So we're here in Washington with the spy who works for the United States government, who's, quote, spilling the tea. Now, this is you talking about Biden being, quote, dead.
Joe Biden is like dead. He can't just say a sentence.
These are your words. I'm going to play them for you here.
Joe Biden is
he's like dead. You also tell an anecdote where you're on the phone with the president. He didn't even know that the guy that he was asking for was right next to him.
My boss was on an international trip with him, like in Europe or something. The phone rang in the office, and I picked it up. And I was like, "Oh, Mr. President, Henry." He was like, "You stayed there." He's like, "No, he's traveling with you. He's on the same trip that you are."
And you work for the National Security Council as an advisor, and you're saying all these things to a rando. What if that random person was a Chinese spy? Is that what they teach you in Intel school? What do you feel like? You're about to be famous. And by the way, what was it like to cry those tears when Trump won? You said you're concerned about being retaliated against.
There were a lot of tears the next morning. We're also concerned about Tim coming after us.
What was it like to cry? There he goes. The spy who shagged me. No, the spy that works for the Biden administration.
Imagine having to be the guy who's walking out in public while James O'Keefe, of all people, is dragging his nuts across your forehead. Could you imagine a more humiliating circumstance?
Running away, not saying a word. He's very concerned. People who are intelligence people don't want to be famous. So we just confronted the spy who works as an advisor to the National Security Council for Biden. He ran away into this place here. We asked him about the tears he was feeling. People who are...
Those glasses definitely look like they're recording or something. There's some kind of smart glasses.
Place here. We asked him about the tears he was feeling and the trauma that he was feeling as a deep state official after Trump's victory. Perhaps he should be concerned because he works for the National Security Council and he's giving away all the secrets to a stranger here on the streets of Washington, D.C. Hello, ma'am. Yes. And then she runs away. People like to stare at us when we do this. We are behind enemy lines in the nation's capital, and the trauma that they feel, maybe they should come after these people for spilling secrets and being horrible at their jobs as spies. That's about the worst espionage ever if you're going to be telling people about what's happening inside the White House. Reporting from Washington, D.C., this is James O'Keefe with OMG.
This is just performance art. Having James O'Keefe creates a media group. It's called OMG, and his goofy ass goes around and stings these, all these gay guys. Like this guy, in this case, is talking to a chick, so maybe he thinks he's not gay, but he's gay. All of these gay guys occupying these, these were genuinely great organizations filled with genuine statesmen. And now they're occupied by theater kids, and they have to endure the humiliation of being absolutely trounced by the gigantic goofball that is James O'Keefe. Reporting for OMG. The fact that it's James O'Keefe and his group is called OMG, it makes it that much more humiliating. If it was Eric Prince doing it, it would be a lot more sinister, kind of. It wouldn't be nearly as humiliating. But here you have, I think it's pretty well known that Eric Prince is funding and training is working with them on the funding and training side. But it's just beautiful. It is absolutely beautiful, and I've got to tip my hat to James O'Keefe because he's genuinely putting himself in some danger doing this sort of thing. He better have a real good accountant and probably needs some good personal security. I can think that he's a goofball, and I can also tip my hat to him and be very impressed with what he's doing. The whole video is here. It's 14 minutes long. I wasn't going to play that whole thing, but you can get, if you go to the King Pilled Substack, or if you see the podcast version of this, the link, all the links for this will be in the description, and that's where you can go watch the whole one if you'd like to. Of course, they've got the Grok memes going. James Bond O'Keefe. And then he says, wait, was this before the gala? And he says, it was in the middle of the gala, hence why I was wearing a tux. No time to change. I excused myself from dinner, did this, and returned in time for tea, pun intended. So that's why he's wearing a tux. Like, they got word that this guy was over there, and he dipped out from the gala, ran over there, did this whole bit, and then ran back over to the gala again. The dude's living in a movie. And then the very last story I got for you guys here today is I mentioned the split in the AI world. You have the closed and open AI people, and the guy who is the head of OpenAI is like the chief, the chief of the closed AI world. There's a sick irony there. But here's Naval Ravikant talking about this, what undergirds this split here between the closed and open AI people.
almost all the innovation of the last 50 years has come in the unregulated industries. If you go to the regulated industries like healthcare, it's a nightmare because there's just too many bureaucrats who are there saying no, and you can't actually do anything interesting. So it's not a coincidence that most of the innovation has happened in the world of bits versus atoms. Peter Thiel lamented, dude, where's my flying car? Well, it's because you're not allowed to take a car and put it in the air, because if it falls down and hurts somebody, God forbid. Nuclear power has been frozen, and the human race has been deprived of cheap and free energy because we haven't been allowed to innovate on nuclear power. I get it. Nuclear weapons are scary, but it's a conflation in the monkey mind of the two things. Nuclear power doesn't necessarily need to lead to nuclear weapons, and they don't necessarily go together. Just like exploding a fuel and a fuel air explosive is not the same thing as a gasoline engine. So we've been held back through regulations, and most of the innovation that we've seen in the last few decades has been on the internet, in mobile computing, and software, has been AI, has been in cryptography and cryptocurrencies. What is the common thread between all of these things? It's all software. It's all in bits. What is software? It's thinking, it's speech, it's mathematics. So people who are trying to regulate AI out of this doomsday fear from having watched the Terminator movies one too many times, they're regulating the free exercise of mathematics. This is completely innumerate people, which is the modern version of illiteracy, who literally do not know how anything works. They don't know how the computer works. They don't actually understand how, they don't understand mathematics. They're scared of it. These are the same kids who were scared of math in high school. They're now writing regulations to prevent other kids from doing math that are actually going to make the human race better off. If you limit computers, you have literally removed and computation, you literally remove the last source of innovation that we have in our society. You're freezing us in place. Don't think you're going to make advances in biology or rocketry somehow magically while you've stopped the improvements in mathematics and computing. You've also fundamentally limited speech. So what are these, I'm sorry, this is the one place where I get worked up. What are these idiots going to actually do? Are they going to show up and say, you can't run this computation this many times? You can't solve this math problem this many times? Well, all knowledge is connected to all other knowledge. What if I come up with a different way to solve the same thing? What if I don't have to do matrix multiplication, but I do a different transformation? Are you going to ban that too? Are you going to prevent me from doing it how many times? What about if there's 100 of us doing it how many times? What if the Chinese are doing it and they're building an AI to power their drone swarms? What do you want us to do? Just get blown up by them? No. So they always make an exception for the military. So we end up in the worst of all possible worlds. No private sector innovation is allowed. Human freedom is curtailed completely and oppressively. You have to arrest people for doing mathematics, which is insane. You have to prevent new forms of mathematics from emerging. Yet somehow you have to miraculously hope that your military sector will keep up, even though it has no support from the private sector and they're mostly incompetent at building things themselves. And now you're competing head on against the Chinese and whoever else who you consider your enemies, who are going to go full well into it. So to me, this is just innumerate people writing legislation.
I think, as the kids say, he cooked there. I think my favorite part of all of that is him in his own way highlighting that this is theater kid occupied government. And Naval is very active on Twitter. He has been for a very long time. One of the smartest guys I've ever listened to. I have a deep appreciation for him. And he said in his conversation with Scott Adams recently that he was testifying to the effect of seeing Elon and his coalition of nerds moving in on the government, that it inspired him. He called him up and was like, hey, if you need my help, tell me what I can do. How can I serve? How can I serve my country? So this is the fundamental divide. Like every other issue that's floating around right now can reduce down to this issue. Economy, domestic issues, currency, war, energy policy, everything gets reduced. This issue contains every other issue on a geopolitical scale right now. And I just don't see a way around the fact that Elon has very obviously pushed his chips in, and that's a very powerful player. Anyways, my brain is really genuinely just shutting down now. So there will be no Schizo stream tonight. I'm not going to have the brain for it. But obviously, anybody's welcome to jump in and into the VC and chat. I may hop in there later if my voice is feeling a little bit better. But for now, I appreciate you guys. Hit the like button on your way out, please, and go to the King Pilled Substack and subscribe over there. That'll get you access to the links. It's free to subscribe. But I'll post this out later on. It's available in audio form on all your podcatchers of choice. If you're listening to the podcast later on, the audio-only version, this is primarily meant to be a visual show, but people requested the audio version, so I pushed it out to the podcatchers. Do me a favor and leave me a 5-star rating and review. Helps us boost the show and the algorithms. And if you're not subscribed on the YouTube channel, do me a favor and subscribe there. Leave a comment and give me some interactions here. I got a copyright strike a couple weeks ago, and it's definitely affected the traffic on the channel. So any bit of engagement you can give me, I thirst for the engagement. Please give it to me. Help my channel. And I will be back on Monday. I should be basically back to normal by then if this trajectory continues. So for now, I leave you. Oinks in the chat, and I leave you with Hulk.
When they took a shot at my hero and they tried to kill the next president of the United States, enough was enough, and I said